About a year ago, I uploaded one of my most popular videos in recent memory. The video in question is titled, "Is Kratos the God of Death?" Of course, this video became very popular. In the content creation space, it's crucial to have a good hook to get people to click on your video instead of another one. The hook in this video, of course, was questioning what was Kratos really the god of? Everyone knows that he became the god of war, but could he also be the god of death? Could he be the God of War's universe version of the Grim Reaper? The being responsible for telling gods and men alike when their turn is up? I think God of War fans are naturally drawn to this topic because most know that David Jaffe was planning a similar ending for the series. One where Kratos would don the name of the Grim Reaper after creating his iconic scythe from the Blades of Chaos. Many fans to this day still love this alternate God of War ending. So of course when they saw a possibility that Kratos could still be called the God of Death, they immediately clicked on the video. However, I think I disappointed a lot of God of War fans with that video. Because while I do think that Kratos was the God of Death, I don't mean that literally. I mean that from a character analysis standpoint. Something that was lost on some people. And look, I don't blame them for not understanding the video. As a content creator, I'm not well known for my character analysis videos. For the most part, I like to make theories regarding the lore of games. So naturally, my audience wants to know the specifics of Kratos' power as the God of Death. So if you were disappointed with that original video, I apologize. But I want to try my hand at it again and see if I can drive the point better this time. Because even though I don't think Kratos was the god of death literally, I do think it was a very important moment in his life. One that explains much of his actions in God of War 2 and 3. And I'll even argue that it might answer why Kratos didn't go back in time to save his family. So before that, let's quickly go over Kratos as a character. From the very beginning of the series, we know that Kratos was a renowned Spartan captain who led many soldiers to victory under his command. This, however, came to a stop when Kratos met the barbarians in the field of battle. Despite their training, the Spartans were no match for the large barbarian army. Even Kratos fell in battle, which single-handedly triggered the event that would forever change his life for the worse. Seeing that he could not rely on his human strength to defeat the barbarians, Kratos called on the god of war, and pledged his soul in exchange for ultimate power. What followed for Kratos was endless carnage in the name of Ares, which slowly peeled away at his humanity, leaving behind only a killing machine. But his worst deed was yet to come. In order to turn him into the ultimate weapon, Ares tricked Kratos into killing his own family. This of course sent Kratos on a mission to break his blood oath with Ares. But even after being freed from Ares' strings, Kratos still suffered from visions of the carnage he had caused in his past. So in exchange for the removal of his nightmares, Kratos entered into servitude with the gods of Olympus, who, even though weren't as evil as Ares, still required him to make some very painful decisions, like saying goodbye to his daughter forever. And even after serving the gods for 10 years, they would still not give him what he wanted. The gods, much like Ares, had used him for their own selfish reasons. So what did Kratos do? In despair, he went to the highest peak in all of Olympus and decided to put an end to it all. But even after all he had done for the gods, they would still not let him rest. So Athena appointed him as the new god of war, where Kratos took his promotion seriously and served as a war deity in a responsible manner for all eternity. Well, maybe not that last part. Gaia tells us at the beginning of God of War 2 that Kratos turned the pain of his memories into hatred for the gods. She also tells us that Kratos was shunned on Olympus, adding more reasons to hate the gods even more. You also add the fact that Zeus betrays him and later destroys his beloved Sparta, and it's no surprise that you get scenes like these in God of War 3. A big reason why the original God of War trilogy feels so satisfying to complete is because Santa Monica does a great job of portraying the gods as evil pricks. This even applies to Athena, the only one of them that comes close to a god that cares about Kratos. In God of War 1, she technically didn't lie to Kratos about erasing his nightmares, but she could have worded it a little bit better. So when Kratos goes on an Olympian killing rampage, it's not too hard to believe. However, I also think it's important to point out that after God of War 1, Kratos from a writing standpoint did suffer a little bit. In God of War 1, Kratos is a much more layered character. A tragic character who isn't fueled solely by vengeance, but also someone who just wants to rid himself of his crippling PTSD. The game touches on themes of addiction, depression, and unaliving oneself. It's a rich narrative wrapped in a really fun game with great pacing. Meanwhile, in God of War 2, you begin to see Kratos change as a character. While in the first game he was motivated to kill a god for multiple reasons, in God of War 2 it just seems like he wants revenge for what Zeus did to him. And his violent approach to dealing with the gods only grew in intensity with God of War 3. So when people say that Kratos used to be a one-dimensional character, I can understand them to some extent. It doesn't bother me as much because we all knew that Kratos was heading into a violent confrontation with the gods since the very first game. Santa Monica just failed to make a smoother transition from God of War 1 Kratos to God of War 3 Kratos. And I think Cory Barlog deep down knows this. Even though God of War 2 was a great success critically and commercially, he knows that he could have handled the story better. But I want to give Cory a pass here because back when he was directing God of War 2, he was still a young writer. Based on some interviews, you can tell that Cory Barlog is really appreciative of the journey he took after working on God of War 3. Not only did he work on games like the reboot of Tomb Raider, but he also had the privilege of working with George Miller, who taught him a lot about writing compelling characters, lessons that he would later apply when working on God of War 2018. And now Cory is regarded as one of the best writers in the video game industry. But in my opinion, despite what people may think about young Cory Barlog, I would still say that he has always shown a lot of talent when it comes to writing. There's just something about his storytelling approach that draws me to it. As many of you know, God of War 2 is still my favorite game in the series, despite the issues I mentioned. The Tomb Raider reboot is also my favorite game in that trilogy. And I don't have to say too much about God of War 2018. The reason this channel exists is due to Cory's vision for that game. And you all know that I want to visit that timeline where Cory Barlog got to direct the entire Norse saga. And I don't think I can give much higher praise than that. Well, except maybe with what I'm going to say next. Look, I love God of War 2, Tomb Raider, and God of War 2018 very much. But you all know that I have a very special love for God of War Ghosts of Sparta's story, which so happens to be written by Cory once again. And it was a no-brainer that he would once again be writing this story, especially when you consider that he was working on a similar demo story for God of War 3. So it makes perfect sense that he would attempt to close that chapter with Ghosts of Sparta. But Cory here did more than just tell an interesting story about two brothers separated from a very early age. Not only did he further portray the gods as evil pricks who deserve what they got in God of War 3, but more importantly, he took Kratos on a journey of self-reflection. A journey that saw Kratos realize that he wasn't a tragic person. He wasn't even the god of war. He was the god of death.
By the gods, what have I become?
Death, the destroyer of worlds.
I think with this move, Cory was trying to explain why Kratos' character had changed so drastically in between God of War 1 and 2. He went from being a tortured human being to an absolute killing machine who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. And the only thing that could explain this drastic change is if Kratos became death itself. Death comes for us all, whether we lived an honorable life or a life of corruption. Death, along with taxes, is one of the few certainties in life. It waits for absolutely no one. And more importantly, it never brings back those it has already taken. That's why Kratos doesn't bother going back in time to save his family. By this time, Kratos has fully embraced the idea that anyone he comes in contact with will die. His family, the boat captain, the poor Athenian woman whom he was trying to help, Orcos, his mother, his brother. Kratos is surrounded by death. He probably didn't think going back in time would do anything to change his family's fate. Somehow, in a dark twist of fate, they would end up dying once again. In a very similar manner to when he thought he had saved them during the fight with Ares.
Now, you will have no power, no magic. All that is left for you is death.
Oh, not again.
Now, of course, this originally was probably an oversight on Cory and the writers of God of War 2, but that's the beauty of God of War Ghosts of Sparta's story. By making Kratos death, it recontextualizes many of the events of God of War 2 and 3. Kratos is no longer a one-dimensional character. He is death, and death is all he can offer, whether you're an evil god or an innocent bystander. But how exactly did Cory manage to bring Kratos to realize this sad truth about his nature? This is the part that gives me goosebumps on how amazingly executed the story of Ghosts of Sparta is. Cory made Kratos realize the sad truth by mirroring the ending of God of War 1. Let me explain. At the end of God of War 1, Kratos finally catches up with Ares. During the fight, he goes through a very traumatic moment as he sees his family being killed once again. This fills Kratos with anger and determination, which helps him kill Ares. After Ares' death, a god reveals to him the true nature of his suffering. He then goes to the highest peak in all of Olympus to put a stop to it all. But Athena steps in at the last second and rewards him for his service to Olympus by making him the new god of war. Kratos steps through the portal and sits on the throne as the new god of war. Now, let's look at the end of Ghost of Sparta to see what I mean. At the end of Ghost of Sparta, Kratos finally catches up with Thanatos. During the fight, he goes through a very traumatic moment as he sees his brother being killed. This fills Kratos with anger and determination, which helps him kill Thanatos. He then goes on to the highest peak in all of Olympus to put a stop to it all. Then a god reveals to him the true nature of his suffering. But Athena steps in at the last second and rewards him for letting go of that which still made him mortal. Kratos gets angry with her and steps through the portal and sits on the throne, swearing vengeance on all of Olympus. If you look at both endings side by side, you will see that they share a lot of similarities. But they both make Kratos realize two very different things. At the end of God of War 1, Kratos is left feeling with anger towards the gods. Despite everything he had done for them, they still managed to screw him over. The gods made Kratos kill his family. The gods made him say goodbye to his daughter forever. The gods tricked him into believing they would erase his nightmares. In God of War 1, Kratos is looking outward by blaming those around him. But in God of War Ghost of Sparta, we see the opposite. Kratos realizes that the only common denominator in all of his suffering is himself. He killed his family. He killed his mother. He didn't have to pick a fight with Thanatos. His brother had already been saved. Don't you think that as the new God of War, he would have had some pull on Olympus to make sure that Thanatos wouldn't be a problem in the future? But what did he do?
Come! The fight is not over.
He chose to stay and fight. He chose to fight none other than death itself. And won. And what happened the last time he killed a god? When Kratos killed Ares, he took his role. He became the god of war. So what do you think was going through Kratos' mind when he killed the god of death?
By the gods, what have I become?
Death, the destroyer of worlds.
Now, I have to make a disclaimer and once again remind you that he isn't the god of death literally. Corey was just mirroring the events of God of War 1 to get the point across that Kratos had changed as a character. At this point, he isn't blaming the gods for what they've done to him. He is blaming himself. But there's a big problem with making Kratos realize this. Because from a writing standpoint, you are now taking away the external motivation that players can relate to. The fact that the gods are pricks. With this ending, the gods aren't pricks, Kratos is. And as a result, he has no need to go after them like he does in God of War 2 and 3. And this is where Cory Barlog truly flexed his muscles as a writer. Because I think Cory synthesized both motivations by making Kratos realize that the gods of Olympus were the ones responsible for turning him into the god of death. And he did this with none other than Athena herself. What I'm about to show you will absolutely blow your mind. I always thought Athena behaved a little odd in God of War Ghost of Sparta. Because at the start of the game, she is clearly opposed to the idea of Kratos going to save his brother.
This is not a wise course of action, Kratos. It was a dream, nothing more. Perhaps it is a vision best left unchanged. There is more to this than you know. Please.
So you would expect that at the end she would say something along the lines of, "I told you so. Some visions are not worth pursuing because they only lead to pain." And then maybe she would hug him and say something like, "Let us go, Kratos. Olympus needs you." This is something you would expect from an ally of Kratos, and especially someone who told him at the beginning not to chase after these visions. But what does Athena say at the end instead?
It is done. You have let go of that which made you mortal. Your ties to this world are severed. You are ready to be a god.
She makes it sound like it was all part of the plan. She wanted Deimos to die so that Kratos would break his final connection to the mortal realm. Wait a second. The plan? Whose plan exactly? Was it Athena who came up with this plan? We know Kratos suffered from visions of his past, but the visions of Deimos only occurred after he became the god of war. Why only then?
Help me.
Kratos knew that this was not a mere vision. For with the gods, nothing was ever as it seemed.
Was Athena responsible for these visions? Is it possible she prompted Kratos to go on this adventure, knowing that it would result in the death of his brother, which would make him stronger? Does any of this sound familiar to anyone? Let's watch the scene again, but now with what I think Kratos was remembering when Athena was blessing him with her powers.
It is done. You have let go of that which made you mortal. Your ties to this world are severed. You are ready to be a god.
You are becoming all I'd hoped you'd be, Kratos. Now, with your wife and child dead, nothing will hold you back. You'll become even stronger. You will become death itself.
Is this all a game to you, Athena? It is not over, Athena. The gods will pay for this.
Forgive me, brother.
This is what I'm talking about. Cory Barlog here is synthesizing both motivations that Kratos will use from this point on until the events of God of War 3. He is the god of death because the gods turned him into the god of death, and as a result, they must pay for what they've done. And Cory brought focus to this point in his life by having Athena be the final piece of the puzzle. Not only did Cory mirror the ending of God of War 1, but he also mirrored the most tragic moment in his life. However, instead of it being the evil god of war who tricked him into killing his family to make him stronger, Athena tricked Kratos into making him kill the rest of his family in order to make him a better god. And I think this is why Kratos gets so angry all of a sudden. Athena in this moment reminded him of Ares. After God of War goes to Sparta, we can't say Kratos is a one-dimensional character. He is a tragic person whom the gods turn into the god of death, and he will make them pay for it. I think with this video I've proven that God of War Goes to Sparta tells an amazing and complex story. But I've also proven that it's an integral game when it comes to recontextualizing some of the flaws of God of War 2 and 3. It's a masterpiece of a story written by one of the most renowned writers in the gaming industry. I think everyone should play this game, especially if you call yourself a God of War fan. And it's a shame that many can't play it because the game is currently rotting away in the PlayStation 3 era. If we could get a remaster of it, I would be eternally grateful. But if not, at the very least, I think it should be included in the Classics library when you get PlayStation Plus. I don't think this is too much to ask. So if you've made it this far into the video, I'm willing to bet that you also share a deep appreciation for Ghost of Sparta. Or maybe you didn't originally, but now find yourself mind blown at how well it's written and want to play it for yourself. If you're either one of those, I will kindly ask you to share this video with as many people as you can. We need to get the word out and make this game more accessible. I truly think it's one of the best games of all time, but PlayStation just doesn't seem to care about it. But that will be all for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed the video. Now, in this video I mentioned that Cory Barlog was also writing a story for God of War 3 involving Deimos. This is something I've dedicated a whole video to before, and if I may say so, I think it's one of the best ones I've ever done. So I am once again asking that if you haven't seen it, please watch it. You can go to it by clicking on this video. I really appreciate it. Now, as always, I want to give a big thanks to all of my YouTube and Patreon members for supporting the channel monthly. I would also like to thank everyone who likes and shares my videos. It may not seem like much, but trust me, it really does help. And with that said, thanks for watching, and remember, go forth in the name of Olympus.